Hello and welcome to Season 9, Episode 1 of the Ubuntu Podcast. It's Tuesday the 1st of March and we're going to be discussing what's been happening in the news and some community events. I'm Martin and joining me this week are Alan.
Hello.
And Laura.
Hiya.
And Mark.
Hello.
Hello again, everyone. It's good to be back, isn't it?
We're back. Yay.
We had the
We haven't completely forgotten how to do this.
No, but we have. It turns out we absolutely have.
It's been like 3 false starts so far.
Yeah.
It's fine. They'll know.
Oh, yeah.
So, since we last spoke in episode 0, Laura, what have you been up to?
I've been hacking dinosaurs on the Isle of Wight.
Tell us more.
With code.
Code.
Well, with
Code and dinosaurs. It sounds like one of my daughter's books.
with Node-RED. So I didn't actually have to write any code in this particular instance. But yeah, Andy Stanford-Clark and Dr. Lucy Rogers, who we interviewed about dinosaur hacking in a previous show at some point, they had put together this thing that would control a desktop dinosaur. So I finished it and worked out how to make it growl and open its jaws at the same time.
Awesome.
And rear up and wag its tail.
That's so good.
It was a lot of fun.
Make it sound cute.
Yeah, it was great.
We need videos. Next time we do this, we need videos, Laura.
There is video.
I saw the photos. The photos of you guys hacking. They look good fun.
Yeah, you should come next time. There is a video, I will find a link to it when we put the show notes together.
Brilliant. And Alan, what have you been up to?
I've been big in Germany. I went to a conference called Embedded World in Nuremberg.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were part of David Hasselhoff's, entourage.
Maybe a bit of that as well. It's basically for all of the big.
I'm just picturing you doing Blue
SoC.
Steel.
No. Maybe all the big ARM and like Intel, like tiny computer vendors and software vendors and stuff out there. People making small board computers and stuff, and ARM and TI and Qualcomm and all those kind of big companies were there showing off all their stuff, and it was all very salesy.
So were you there to represent for Ubuntu Snappy?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And we had some demos of Snappy going and stuff like that. It was quite good. It was huge. I'd never been to a conference center that big, and it was massive. And also,
Wow.
in the 3 days I was there, I ate more sausages than I've eaten in the past.
Now, whilst that's an impressive achievement, I like the idea that Embedded World is huge.
Yeah, there is some irony there. Yes, it is gigantic. Everywhere you look, there are these tiny little computers, and I was really pleased to see Ubuntu everywhere, like on loads of stands. We kept going around doing Ubuntu spotting, taking photos every time we saw Ubuntu being used on a demo, like as a desktop or something. It was really cool, really good.
Excellent. Well, shall we get on with some news?
Let's. And now it's time for the news. And this week, it's a bit of a special news segment because we're going to be having an in-depth look at one of the bigger announcements of the week, the Raspberry Pi 3. Ooh. Now, as we record, it was actually announced yesterday morning that the Raspberry Pi 3 is, it's now available, being sold and probably selling out quite quickly. It's been an upgrade from the previous Model 2. It now features a quad-core 64-bit ARM processor. It has onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all the other usual bits and bobs in terms of USB ports and GPIO pins and all that stuff. But extra specially, it turns out that we've had a holdout amongst us, and Martin has had one for quite a while and has some insider information to share.
Secret squirrel.
I know. I'm sorry. And the thing is that quite a while, I really wish it had been quite a while, because it turns out it wasn't quite long enough. So, So I need to start this, because now time has gone by. I found out how this all transpired. And so I need to say thank you to friend of the show, Joe Ressington, because it turns out Joe Ressington was at the Raspberry Pi Foundation on Thursday last week as we record the show. And while he was there, he suggested that maybe I should be sent a Raspberry Pi in order to work on the Ubuntu Pi flavor maker stuff. So consequently, I was contacted by Ben Nuttall and various other people. So Simon West and Liz Upton and Phil Elwell at the Raspberry Pi Foundation then sort of got me this device, and it arrived in time for Friday evening, and I had from Friday evening till 7 o'clock on Monday morning to get the Raspberry Pi 3 running various flavors of Ubuntu. So it was a sleepless weekend, but it was a lot of fun.
How far did you get? What did you get running on it?
Everything except the Bluetooth. So that's the short answer. And the long answer is spent a long time tinkering with the bits, but consequently had a good look at it. So have got one and have really been poking it around for a few days and have got to know it quite well.
Cool. Now there was kind of a bit of a leak in that when obviously because it's got Wi-Fi chip on board, they had to get certain authorization from FCC and so on around the world to get it legal to sell. So some photos leaked out and it looked very much like the model. The Raspberry Pi 2 Model B. Is that what yours looks like? Is it basically the same board but with another chip?
It looks It looks very similar to the Raspberry Pi 2 Model B, although my one that I have looks a bit different from the ones that are in those FCC leaks. So on those FCC leaks, on the underside picture, it looks like there's some sort of slimline HDMI connector on the underside of the board, and there's no such mountings on the model I've got. So maybe the FCC got a prototype, but other than that, it's identical to the Raspberry Pi 2 and the B Plus in terms of its layout and form factor. The only thing that's changed physically is the LED lights have been moved slightly to make space for the wireless antennas.
Oh, so it's not, you haven't got like a giant antenna sticking out the top of the board?
No, it's minuscule. I mean, it's amazing actually that the Wi-Fi is really good. And in fact,
is there a socket for an external Wi-Fi antenna?
No, there isn't. Not that I've seen. I don't know if you could create. I'm sure somebody will make one because people make everything for the Raspberry Pi, don't they? So
right.
I don't know if it can be retrofitted in some fashion, but there's no obvious spot for that. No.
Is
Go on, Laura.
Is the main reason for the Bluetooth things like having a Bluetooth keyboard you connect to it?
Yes, that. Although I haven't actually tried. Well, I haven't actually got the Bluetooth working yet, so this is still a work in progress for me at the moment on the Ubuntu versions, and we're tantalisingly close. And it's that issue where you can't get the blobs to do the thing the blobs are supposed to do, and from my point of view, I'm kind of blind as to what's going on there, and other people are a little bit more insightful. But yes, Bluetooth keyboards would be great, but also I'm thinking for just connecting to other sorts of peripherals, that's a really useful interface to have available. Yeah, just think of the possibilities. Think of all of the things that speak Bluetooth now. I mean, I really wanted to get it working so that I could pair the Raspberry Pi with my Ubuntu laptop and share the internet over Bluetooth, rather than Wi-Fi, because that works really well with my phone on my laptop, and I wanted to do the same. So that's my use case for Bluetooth. But there's an interesting little twist with the Wi-Fi now. So the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are both on the chip on the SoC, and one of the criticisms that's been levelled against the previous iterations of the Raspberry Pi is that the Ethernet and the SD host controller are on the same USB bus. So when you're doing network stuff and I/O stuff at the same time, it really bogs down performance. But the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are on the SoC and don't share the USB bus now. And I haven't tested this theory, but I have a hunch that actually the wireless will outperform the Ethernet. So,
well, if you're doing lots of I/O,
yeah. So if you were doing so using the Pi to rsync something from a local server to the Pi, so it's writing to the SD card and pulling the data over the Wi-Fi. My feeling is that would be faster than if you did it over the wired Ethernet now.
Cool.
What RAM does the 3 have?
It's the same as the Pi, so it's 1 gig of LP. What do they call it? LP something. Anyway, it's 1 gig,
Right.
1 gig of RAM, just as before.
Is there a particular advantage given that you've still got less than 4 gigs of RAM? Is there a particular advantage to having 64-bit processors on there, or is it just good because they're faster than the old processor?
Yeah, it's kind of a side effect. So it's not so much that it's a 64-bit processor. It's more that this particular processor is 64-bit, but also happens to be a better 32-bit processor. So it's just a better architecture. And what will remain to be seen, and this is probably a project for the Raspberry Pi enthusiasts, is if a native ARM v8 build is made for the Raspberry Pi 3, is there any significant performance advantage over it running ARM v7?
Right.
And the Raspberry Pi Foundation have no appetite to do this because they actually have a lineage back to ARM v6. So their user space is all ARM v6.
Right, but people could do comparative benchmarks across the whole set and compare and see what performance difference they are.
Yeah.
Something that I was interested in, I ordered some, as soon as I saw someone post a link on Twitter, I saw someone post a link to RS Components saying, "Oh, you can get a Raspberry Pi." And this was early in the morning when I was making breakfast. And I thought, quick, got the credit card out, ordered a couple of Pis because I can't buy one, so I bought them. They arrived today, and one thing I noticed, I put an SD card in that I'd had in a Raspberry Pi 2, and it wouldn't boot.
Yeah.
Is there something significantly changed that means you're going to have to make, even if you don't want to take advantage of the new hardware, you've got to make a new image somehow?
Yeah. So the things that I was sent and told about is there's some subtle changes to the kernel. There's a new device tree blob specifically for the Raspberry Pi 3. And among other things, the way that the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth have been implemented means that the SD host controller is on a different device now using a different controller. So I suspect that the old images simply don't boot because they can't speak to the controller because it's not there.
Oh, they can't see the disk that they were booting from. Right, okay, that's understandable.
So
I mentioned this to our ARM guys earlier on today. I said I've tried a snappy image and it doesn't work, and they went, "Oh, okay." So they went and ordered a couple. So I think our guys are going to start doing their porting work as well.
So I sort of took some of the words that I was sent from Phil Elwell at the Raspberry Pi Foundation and incorporated those into the blog post for Ubuntu Mate. So if you go and look there, it has the details about what changed with the Wi-Fi chip introduction and the new SDIO interface and the new MMC controllers that are being used and how things have been shuffled around. And that will probably give them the clues they need. And also the Raspberry Pi Foundation GitHub repository for their kernel has now had all of the commits retrospectively added, because they didn't want to do that ahead of time because it would have given the game away. So all of that stuff is in Git, and you can actually look and see what the changes are now, which I didn't have the benefit of a few days ago.
Awesome. So I guess we'll keep looking out for more news on Raspberry Pi 3 and see what new and interesting things people do with them and what new images are made available. Thanks for that inside info there, Martin.
Yes, definitely.
Moving on, Canonical, my employer, have announced that ZFS will ship with Ubuntu 16.04 LTS. This apparently violates the GPL of the Linux kernel, according to some lawyers. A few free software lawyers have blogged about this. The Software Freedom Conservancy have recommended a remedy is for Oracle to relicense ZFS as GPL, which a lot of people have been asking for many years, whereas the Software Freedom Law Center suggests that since there's no limitation of software freedom, this might be considered in the spirit of the GPL. And we'll link to both of those lengthy, somewhat heavyweight articles in the show notes.
Yes, if you're a licensing compatibility geek like me, this is really interesting.
So what's ZFS licensed under?
CDDL. It was created back in the days of Sun before Oracle bought Sun.
Right.
And CDDL is arguably incompatible with GL, so you can't ship code that's based on both.
As one thing.
As one blob. And some are arguing that the fact that in 1604 the proposal is for Ubuntu to ship the Linux kernel, Lysol, and ZFS as a binary module that's on the CD and in your install, that's violation because those two licenses. Others argue that it's not. And there was a bit of a brouhaha about it when it came out last week, when the Software Freedom Conservancy posted their article. A lot of people were saying that Canonical have found some lawyers who say that. So there's a little bit of poking and jabbing in each direction. I'm not a lawyer, so no.
But the interesting thing is that even if the Software Freedom Law Centre's point of view is, one of the things they say, no, maybe this isn't their point of view, one of the things they point out is that even if it is actually a violation of the Linux kernel GPL, there's no software freedom problem because the source code is still available and it's still copyleft, even if it's not under a compatible license.
And
so it's interesting to see.
The curious thing about the CDL is that when you compile something into a binary, it adopts the license of the thing that it's shipped alongside. So as a binary, it's GPL compatible, but as source, it's not.
Yes, except that under the GPL, you have to ship the source as GPL, which they can't do because it's CDDL.
Yeah. And hell will
we
freeze
go around
over
in circles
before
all day
Oracle
about
change the licensing on ZFS, so that's a moot point, I think.
Right.
So there's been a revised draft of the so-called Snoopers Charter being published, and it now includes example codes of practice. Police will now be allowed to look at all of a person's online activity, not just that suspected. But safeguards have been put in place to ensure that police can only access surveillance records with the love of the government. The open rights group say that the revisions barely pay lip service to the concerns raised over the original, so they're not happy.
No. Which is...
Are we surprised?
No.
Really? like they were going to, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, we should actually make this a lot harder for government agencies to get access to your data. No, of course they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we shouldn't take this as it's all right now because they've apparently listened and revised it. It's still not good. And they're still, or basically they haven't got rid of the big problem, which is that they are they're requiring companies to capture this data and store it. It doesn't really matter how what the legal process is for getting information, for getting access to it are. If it's captured and stored, the non-legal uses for this are terrifying.
Yeah, because the company's got to look after it, and then it's sitting there waiting to be hacked, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Right.
I think we've probably run out of time for any more news.
Yes, let's move on.
Thanks very much. And in community news and events, but no events,
Oh, yeah.
an article over on OMG Ubuntu talked about some phones that were demoed at the recent Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, which we recorded this last week.
Mm-hmm.
There was a nice photo of a giant Ubuntu stand with loads of orange banners and looked very welcoming and very bright. And a couple of the phones mentioned in the blog post were the OnePlus One and Sony Xperia. I think it was Xperia Z1, perhaps.
Yeah.
Which looks pretty cool. The OnePlus One is a port that's been around for a little while, and the Sony Xperia Z1 is a relatively new one. And the post also talks about the fact that there's some open source work that was done by both companies, which helps to make the ports easier.
That's cool.
Because ports on some devices are a lot easier than others.
Yeah.
And that ports for Nexus 5 and Fairphone 2. The Nexus 5 one has been around for a while, but it needs...
So have you run Ubuntu on your OnePlus One?
I have a OnePlus One here with the Ubuntu image. It's not perfect. It's got some flaws. There's a few bits missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd encourage anyone who's interested in helping out. There's a website called ubports.com, and if you go there, you can see a list of all the call for help and which devices people are asking for. Yeah, there's a donation button as well, because people throw them a couple of dollars if you're interested in getting a port done.
And do you happen to know if any of those new devices, like the OnePlus One or the Xperia Z1, are convergent? Do they support converging?
So it depends what your definition of convergence is, right?
Well,
and to different people it means different
yeah.
things. Some people it means, can I plug a cable in the bottom and stick it in my telly?
Yes, I'm talking about the non-developer definition of convergence here.
Well, okay, but in the future there'll be devices that you can't do that with, but you can use Miracast or Ethercast and transmit your screen to a telly, and you've achieved the same thing. You've got the output from your phone on a big telly or a big screen.
Yeah.
So when I'm very wary of saying this phone does convergence or that phone does not do convergence just because it does or doesn't do Slimport or MHL over the USB cable. It's more about, and some can and some can't. And I don't think either the Sony Xperia or the OnePlus One are wired up to do.
But what you are saying is there may be alternatives in the works to transmit your screen elsewhere. And so long as you can do that, the convergent story works.
Right, the fact that it can't do it over a cable is somewhat moot. There's a
interesting
project.
I always found that.
Ethercast.
Yeah,
Ethercast.
I always found that a far more sort of compelling version of convergence, if you will, rather than having to have something plugged into it, just being able to wirelessly do it over a network to a screen somewhere.
And if it can do it reliably and, quickly and you don't get too much lag, then yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be playing Call of Duty on their phone and, streaming that over wireless to their TV. That's not what we're expecting, but, for the desktop to work. Moving on.
So in shock news, Microsoft do not love Linux because Linux users have been reporting that they can no longer join Skype chats started with Mac and Windows running the latest version of the Skype client. So I think it's been nearly 3 years since Skype was updated for Linux, and some recent changes on the other platforms mean that it's not cross-platform anymore.
And just to really rub it in, when you can't join, the other participants get told that you can't join until you've updated.
Which you can't do.
But can you do Linux to Linux Skype calls?
Yeah.
But you just can't do Linux to Windows and Windows to Linux or Mac?
Yeah.
Well, that sucks a bit.
And the journalist on OMG Ubuntu, I think it was, found that it wasn't absolute in that sometimes it did work and sometimes it didn't work. They did see that message at least once, but then there were other things like delays in messages being sent or seeing whether contacts were on or offline. So the sort of the concurrency stuff seemed a bit iffy.
Seems like there's some parts of the network that have been upgraded, the Skype network that have been upgraded, that the Linux client is not compatible with, rather than it actually being the end point problem. Because if it sometimes gets through and sometimes doesn't, it sounds like, or unless some people. But I don't care because it's proprietary software and they should update it.
Yeah, and if there was ever another example of why proprietary software is no good, this is a good example because there's nothing anybody can do about this other than the holders of the source code.
Sadly, that doesn't help me get some remote interviews done though.
Yeah, this is true.
True.
This is true.
There are other options though, and I'll I'd be interested to hear from our listeners, because I know many of our listeners don't use Skype and refuse to use it. I'd be interested to hear what some of our listeners use instead of Skype, because I think that's a whole segment in itself.
Yeah.
Alternatives to Skype.
Cross-platform alternatives.
Definitely, yes.
Cool.
So Canonical has won not one, not two, but 3 awards at the Mobile World Congress, which happened also last week. As far as I understand it, different participants there are different news outlets can issue these awards. So they got 2 Best of MWC awards for the BQ Aquaris M10 Ubuntu Edition tablet. Just being so ace and it being the only one of that kind of thing with the convergence thing out there. And also got a Best IoT Startup Award for running blockchain in homes using the Ubuntu Core OS. I think
just what we need, blockchain in our homes.
Yeah.
Blockchain, all the things.
When the heating fails.
I assume it's something to do with knowing who things are.
Brilliant.
Very, very succinctly put. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yes. And They also showed off the Meizu Pro 5.
Cool.
Which is
a new phone coming soon.
Yes.
Yes, is that right? I saw conflicting
Me too.
versions of this. Whether I saw the first reviews I saw said, well, you can't connect a cable to it and plug it into a monitor. It doesn't work with that phone. And then I saw what appeared to be a video of it being done at MWC. So
interesting.
I've got no idea whether that actually.
I wasn't there, so I don't know.
It seems like
the phone does.
It seems like it would be quite silly to have shown off this really rather powerful phone as their new phone for Ubuntu, and it not be able to do this.
Didn't we just have this conversation 2 minutes ago?
Yes, probably, but about different phones.
Yeah, because
Right, but the concept is still the same. You either plug a cable in or you transmit it over the network.
Yes, no, but I mean, but at the moment, the version of doing it is plugging the cable in.
Right, because the Ethercast stuff is not finished.
Yes.
And luckily that phone is not on the market yet, so you're okay. I don't know, because I haven't even seen that phone. I've not hailed one, seen one. I've not even seen photos.
You're right.
Some corporate insider you are.
Yeah, but
I'm so totally not an insider.
based
When
on
they
a
have this
previous
big
segment,
show-
I don't believe you.
There's a note on all of their meetings that says don't invite Alan Pope.
Yeah.
Well, worse than that, they all go to Barcelona, and I get sent to
Same.
Germany to make me even further away from them. So, yeah, very much not that. Moving on.
The Ubuntu Scope Showdown closed yesterday with some awesome prizes up for grabs. Can anyone tell me what those prizes are?
No, there's a URL there though if you want to.
Oh, okay. We'll put that link in the show
You
notes
win
to
the
find
URL.
out what prizes you could have won had you entered. So the dev competition was to develop new scopes using either JavaScript, Go, or C++. The jury is a mixture of Ubuntu community members and Canonical employees, but we don't know yet who the winners are. So watch this space, or the space of the URL that we'll be pointing you to.
So David Calais on the community team organised this, and the main selling point of this was the fact that you can now code scopes in JavaScript, much easier language to pick, more commonly known than some of the others like Go and C++, and easier to program. And David said he's had loads of entries, so he was really happy with some of them and really liked the look of them. So look forward to seeing those. I think they're already all uploaded to the store as well.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
they're already available for people to try on their phone.
The cool prizes. The first place winner gets a System 76 Meerkat.
Nice. Wow.
I assume that's the name of one of their devices, not
Not
an actual meerkat.
Which should be kind of cool as well. And what seems to be called a convergence pack, which is apparently just a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse.
But not a cable. Let's be absolutely
Saw that
clear,
coming.
it's not a
Definitely
cable.
not a cable.
But maybe they'll send you some ether through which you can send your data.
And then second and third prizes get Steam controllers
Oh, nice.
and
Also
also
Can
don't
you use those with a
need
Ubuntu
cables.
phone?
convergence packs. And then there's an innovation prize where you get a Raspberry Pi 2 and a Steam controller and a convergence pack.
I think we should
So
upgrade that to
last
a Raspberry
week,
Pi
yeah.
3. Yeah, we should upgrade that to a Raspberry 3, definitely. Especially, yeah.
Oh, yeah, second and third
I'll have
get
a word with
BQ
Mr.
phones
Kelly.
as well.
Nice.
Cool.
And Canonical's lead designer, Yoni Hellman, has called for skilled developers to make apps ported to run on Unity 8 look like native apps using the Ubuntu UI toolkit. So he wrote a blog post and highlighted some of the new designs for some of the apps, including the music app, calendar, and Deco, the email client. Highlighted some of the UI changes that are coming. So if you've got an Ubuntu phone, you'll see those changes landing over the course of the next month or so. Some of the apps have already been updated to the new UI, and others are being done as we speak.
Cool.
And finally, the Ubuntu kernel engineering team have written a reference guide for setting up ZFS on Ubuntu.
Okay, so we've mentioned ZFS twice. Why? Just why?
Because it's
It's the new hotness, Laura.
Everyone who
It's the old
everyone
ones.
who can use ZFS from a license compliance point of view. So that's the BSD people and Solaris people have been laughing at us because we don't have their rock solid superstar file system ZFS. We have something that's not production ready, which is ButterFS, and we have lots of old file systems that are super stable and perfectly fine, but don't have all the new hotness and new features that ZFS
Like
has.
X4.
X4, yeah. There's lots of stuff that ZFS has that X4 doesn't have. And if you look at any like presentation, there's a guy called Alan Jude who works on BSD. He's done a couple of videos on YouTube where gives some talks about what the features of ZFS are, some of the cool things you can do with it, and why it's like the most awesome file system on the planet. And so the reason why everyone's super excited about ZFS is now it comes to Linux, lots more people can use it because nobody uses BSD or Solaris, and lots of people use Linux.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for saying
So
that.
why did we go with ButterFS apart from the cool?
It was
all we
licensed in a
had.
way where it could be used in the kernel. When it was developed, it was submitted to the kernel under a license that it could be distributed. So we use ButterFS because it's there and it's got some features that are in ZFS, but it's not production ready yet. They don't have a huge number of people working on it. Whereas Sun, when ZFS was created, put quite a lot of people and quite a lot of effort into making it like robust. And so now it is quite a robust file system, whereas ButterFS still isn't.
Yeah, B3FS
That's
is
all right.
still maturing, and ZFS is 11 years old now, so it's sort
I
of
remember reading
battle-tested.
an article about ZFS in Linux format when I was at university and thinking, that's really cool. I hope we get that soon.
And that's the end of the community news and events, but no events.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. If you'd like to discuss some of the things we talk about with other listeners, post on our Shiny News subreddit at reddit.com/r/Ubuntu Podcast. Or you can just leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
And that's all for episode 1, over so soon. But we'll be back next week when we'll be discussing, in fact, not discussing, we've got an interview with the user experience researcher at Canonical, and we have some command line love.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
Sorry, was that too exciting? Sorry. Yes, see you next week. Yes. It was very enjoyable.
Bit.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
a bit more practice, don't we?
More mojitos.
Definitely a lot more alcohol now we've gone remote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
I've just got 2
See
empty
you next
cups of tea.
time.
Bye.
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 So, do we press stop now?